Hey, Disney cruisers, and welcome back to the DCL community, where we are here to help you plan, prepare for, and get excited for your Disney cruise. You guys know me. I'm Rebecca, your host and admin of the DCL community. And today we are talking to all those parents and planning, if you will, to all those expecting parents. This is a very special time and a very exciting time, but something that you're definitely going to have to keep in mind when planning for vacation. So I am so excited to have expectant mother. Very exciting news. Crissi O'Kane joining us today, who just got back from 2 weeks on board. So Crissi, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? And as before coming in, please say hi. Let us know where you're watching from.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crissi O'Kane, one of your recommended travel agents with the DCL community. I love being part of this group. It's been a little over a year now, actually. I love it. It's such a fun community. It's full of so much support and help, and some really great agents to make your cruise even better, myself included, I think. But this is my first time kind of making a video that's a bit more about me personally and my personal experiences. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. Cruising while pregnant was something that I always knew I would end up doing because I eventually planned to live on a cruise ship. So, I knew I would end up doing, but it's something that I learned a lot about the past 6 months.
Yes, I was going to say expecting twins. So
yes, I am double pregnant.
Yes, double trouble. And we have some people already asking about if you did an announcement on board. So
I did. Yes. I did do an announcement on board. I think a couple of those pictures are coming up, but I also shared a lot of them with the group. So you can look on the Disney Cruise Line Facebook group. It's there. I promise. You can just search my name. It's going to come up. And then maybe I'll share a couple later at the end too.
Yes, love that. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dive in. And of course, if you have any questions as we're going through this, whether you are pregnant, expecting, want to be expecting in the future, never want to be expecting again, reach out to Crissi. She is here to help. You might not know this, but her planning services are actually free for you to utilize. So if you're planning for a family, just for a couple of friends, she has got you covered. But let's go ahead and start with your experience cruising, because you weren't just on for like a 3-nighter or a 4-nighter. You went for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So my last set of cruises was, I kind of put these in reverse in order. So the last 2 I did back to back. Well, but it was side to side because they were 2 totally different ships. But I actually did 5 cruises while pregnant this pregnancy. It's just that it wasn't public knowledge that I was pregnant until the last 2. But the first 3 cruises that I did this year, I did a Royal Caribbean over New Year's. That was 7 nights. And I did Virgin Voyages with one of my best friends. And that was 5 nights. Then I did another Royal Caribbean, but this time out of Texas. And this is also with my sister and her family. So we were a big group. Then I did Disney Cruise Line with my husband and one of my best friends and her kiddos, same best friend that I was on Virgin Voyages with. And that was when we did our big pregnancy announcement. And at this point, I was very far along. So I actually cruised the very last 2 weeks that I'm eligible to cruise. I was cruising. And then my final cruise was, I literally walked next door to the Norwegian Aqua for a cruise with several other agents from Academy Travel on that ship. So I had a lot of fun. I did 5 different cruises on 4 different lines, varying destinations, varying ports of call, also varying weather conditions, because I've cruised starting in January all the way through June. So very different weather issues on board that somebody take into consideration. And truly, my only regret was not doing more. Like I was like, out of 23 weeks, I only spent 5 of them on a ship. Like, dude, I should have done like 8. Like that's what I wish I had done. But it's okay. It's okay.
But I want to be like Crissi when I grow up. That sounds like heaven to me.
A lot of people talk to me about wait until your second trimester when you feel better. And that was, for me, absolute false advice. I'm so glad that I did so many cruises early on in my pregnancy because I felt a lot better. My last 2 cruises, it was tough. It was really tough. The heat combined with being bigger. I'm having twins, so I'm even bigger than other people would be. But the heat was really hard. But some other things about me personally, unrelated to being pregnant, is my body loves being on a cruise ship. So if that's not you, then maybe being, on a cruise ship for your entire pregnancy might not be your jam. But for me, all of my issues at home, I have like chronic allergies and sinus pressure and trouble sleeping, and my stomach's always upset. It's like magically healed when I'm on a ship. So for me, it was like I could finally sleep through the night, which is not great when you're pregnant and you can't sleep through the night. I can finally breathe. Oh my gosh, I don't have asthma. I don't have allergies. It's like great. So for me, being on the ship throughout my entire pregnancy is better than being at home. Even when I had bouts of morning sickness, that's probably one of the first questions that I get is like, is the motion going to make me even more sick? It's probably not going to affect it at all. It's going to be the same. So if you're managing your morning sickness at home, manage it on a ship and be able to enjoy the rest of the day. If you're somebody that's sick all day long, maybe it's not the right, cruising might not be the right time. Wait till later in your pregnancy to get on a ship. A lot of my bookings were pretty last minute because I really wanted to make sure that I was in good health and everything was good. And then some of them, like the Norwegian one, I booked ages ago as an agency commitment, fully knowing I might have to cancel depending on how things go. Unfortunately, I was doing great, so I went.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So variety of ships. Somebody's asking what's the best cruise line for someone who's
So it's a tough call. For me personally, it was Royal Caribbean. And I can kind of talk about like part of it is just the flexibility and options. It's all going to depend on how your body's doing and what you need. This is my first time being pregnant, that's false, but my first time as this far along my pregnancy, and we don't currently have other kids. So if we had other kids, that might make Disney Cruise Line a little bit more appealing than Royal Caribbean. But because we don't, there were so many areas on Royal Caribbean that we could relax in, and the Disney ships just aren't the same size. And the variety of food options that are indoors and open 24/7 really helps. Disney, I was always hungry at like 3:00, 4:00, and my only options are room service or a festival of foods. And I can't eat outside in the heat, and festival foods is all hot. So I was like having room service every day, which, not a complaint, but it was not for me. And then there are other issues, but generally I think that Royal Caribbean really has the biggest ships, and that really gives you the most variety. Sometimes I had tons of energy. I wanted to be at everything. Sometimes I just wanted to go to the solarium, which is adults only, and just put my feet in a hot tub and do nothing else. And I can. Whereas on Disney Cruise Line, you just don't have as many spaces. So it's harder to kind of find time that you're totally on your own. So
yeah, I was going to say, if you have any questions about Royal versus Disney for your family specifically, definitely reach out to Crissi. She loves a mega ship. I swear, if you could, if Crissi's middle name was decided by me, it would be Crissi Mega Ship O'Kane, because you just love them so much. So if you have questions and you're trying to compare ships, definitely send Crissi an email. But let's go ahead, and I know lots of people are going to be asking, right? Like, when can I actually sail? When is it safe? So let's get into some of the logistics.
So the magic number is 24. And in general, you want to look at your specific cruise line. You want to look at your specific itinerary. If you're on a really long itinerary, then it might not be allowed even earlier on. Like if you're looking at like a 30-day or a year-round world trip cruise or something like that. But for the majority of standard 7-night Caribbean, 24 weeks is what's not allowed. So some cruise lines phrase it as, will anyone be 24 weeks or more? Some cruise lines say more than 23 weeks, right? So 23 weeks or less, you can cruise. And it's also technically at any point during that sailing. So if your due date is a Wednesday and the cruise is Saturday to Saturday, then you've lost part of a week, because you technically turn 24 weeks in the middle of that cruise. However, this is the extent of the documentation of it. You get the health questionnaire 1 day or 2 days. Sometimes, usually just for me, it's always been just 24 hours-ish prior to sailing. And you say, no, I'm not more than 24 weeks pregnant. And that's the end of it. And I've had to check this box for every cruise of my whole life. And so it was really no different this time. You don't need any further documentation. I've never been asked for it, but having it doesn't hurt. So as we mentioned, I am having twins. I definitely look further along than 20 weeks. So I had a dated ultrasound just in case, right? It can't hurt. You also want to make sure that your travel insurance has maternity coverage. That is something that a lot of people don't necessarily consider. So it's just something to look at. I have an annual policy because I cruise frequently, but I was able to add maternity on just per trip for really low, So if there was an issue, it would have been covered, which would be fantastic. The other thing to keep in mind is that these are the essential rules for the cruise line. They're not necessarily recommendations from your doctor. So if you're a higher risk pregnancy, your doctor might want to limit traveling earlier on, other things like that. So, you need to follow your medical provider's advice. And if they say 20 weeks and you're home, that's what they say. But the cruise lines rule is generally 23 weeks or less.
Got it. Okay, good to know. And Rob is asking, is this the same for all cruise lines? I'm assuming that's the 24
Pretty much
weeks.
standard.
Okay.
Like I said, there's some variation, and it's actually more based on itinerary, so you do want to check. And so all cruise lines sailing out of the U.S. will have pretty much the same ruling. Sometimes they may even be shorter, but you won't see a cruise line that allows you to sail later than 24 weeks. And I can't get like 100% confirmation on this, but that's also the week that's considered like the week of viability. So like at that point, if there were an emergency situation, like you with a lot of support, technically a baby could survive out of the womb at that week. Generally, that's like the absolute earliest. It's not a pretty survival, but it's possible. So I think that's kind of where this denotation comes from. Cruise lines medical facilities do not have ultrasounds on board. They do not have like delivery services on board. So if there was an emergency, you would be looking at a helicopter somewhere where they would have more services. And that is just a risk that I think most cruise lines are not willing to put their guests in. So
yeah, I was going to say it's a rule for a reason. And I know, listen, if there's anybody who wants you on a cruise ship, it's Crissi and I.
Yes.
Like, we're the biggest advocates, but you got to think of your family and, just not taking a risk. We don't take a risk with passports. We travel with our passports, and we're not taking a risk with traveling after whatever the deadline is that the cruise line set. And then where was it? Brooke was asking, what happens if I find out that I'm pregnant and I've already booked the cruise? Does that maternity coverage cover canceling the cruise?
So the maternity coverage would be care on board. Cruise cancellation would be that would be your trip cancellation insurance. And a couple things. So if you're finding out before final payment, because final payment is generally 90 to 120 days prior to sailing. So if you're just finding out that you're pregnant in 90 days, that's less than 23 weeks. 120 days, that's still less than 23 weeks. So you're most likely finding out before final payment. And at that point, you can still cancel for full refund anyway, provided that you didn't book concierge or a restricted fare, which restricted fares are not generally available unless they're short notice anyway. So that's probably not the case. And if it's concierge, while it is non-refundable, it is reschedulable. So you've got some options. Pursuing with your travel insurance, you would need to be looking at reasons for cancellations or covered cancellations. And maternity is usually one of them, an unexpected pregnancy. However, if you were already pregnant before you purchased the policy, then it would be a pre-existing condition and it would no longer be covered. So you do have to kind of be like careful that if you cross your T's and dot your I's and note that you purchased the insurance before you found out you were pregnant, if you were actually subject to cancellation penalties. And for other cruise lines where you have a non-refundable deposit, absolutely, that's the way to go. But for Disney Cruise Line with that refundable deposit, you're probably okay.
Yes. And lower deposits now. Very exciting.
Ooh, yes.
Very exciting. Okay. Yes. What are these tips for these expected months? After 2 weeks back to back on board, plus all the other cruises, I'm sure you have lots of them. And
I do. So I organize them into, and definitely hop on my calendar. Even if you're already booked, even if you're not looking for an agent, let's just chat through things, because I picked my top tips, but I've learned, like I said, I have cruised a ton during pregnancy. I have a lot of thoughts. I do think it's the best baby moon, and friends getaway. It's the best. But here's my top ones for when you're on the ship. The first, and this is my top overall, truly, is to pick a room for convenience. Okay, this is not the time to save a little bit by being all the way forward or all the way aft. It's not. It's also not the time to be like obsessed with the perfect view or the perfect balcony. You need convenience. For me, that's being right by the elevator. So which on the Treasure, it's not exactly midship, right? I needed to be somewhat off midship so that I could be by that aft elevator or the forward elevator. And we were also on deck 10, so that I couldn't do any earlier in my pregnancy. I could do 1 or 2 sets of stairs, no problem. But at this point, elevators were my friend, except they were also too tiny and I was also nervous in them. But for the most part, elevators were my friend. So I could do 1 elevator up to Marceline or Festival of Foods, and then I could do the stairs going down one if I needed to go back to my cabin. And that was phenomenal for us. Other people maybe want to be closer to Oceaneer's lap if you have like other kiddos that you're dropping off frequently. And if you are not like a compulsive snacker like I am, maybe you want to be right over there by the Quiet Cove area. Who knows, right? But pick a room for convenience, be by the elevators, and be like near where you want to be. Eliminate, like reduce the walking as much as possible so you can spend most of your time enjoying your cruise.
Love that.
Next step is to schedule your day. And this is something that I love about cruising, is feeling like I don't have to do this. I can just like wing it every day and it's going to be a great day. But then you get into situations where like, the kids I was with wanted to go see Stitch the movie. I want to see Stitch the movie, but I don't have my compression socks on me, right? Well, fortunately, I'm going to send one of them to the room to go get them. But if I was cruising without them, that would have been like, adding a step, or trying to go to the movie theater, sit for 2 hours with my feet down. Anybody who's super far into their pregnancy knows this is a bad idea. You're going to leave with rocks for feet.
Oh, no.
Way too swollen feet. So really kind of look at your day. You don't have to do it super far advanced. Just in the morning, look at your day and schedule downtime, schedule time to just change clothes. I know it's silly, but just schedule like these 15 minutes. Crissi is changing clothes into something more comfortable after dinner so that she can enjoy the rest of the day. Schedule pool time. The pool is your friend, especially if you're sailing on Wish or Treasure with that bench pool. That bench pool, a lot of people complain about it, but for pregnant people, it's perfect. You just notch right in there and your feet float up and it's great.
You're good to go. Yes.
Yeah. But have that plan so that you're not in a bind where you don't have something you need in order to have a good time in the activity, and you're not adding extra steps in to, kind of get yourself together. Have a plan. And then packing. You want to pack more comfortable clothes than you think you need. Basically every evening I was in like leggings and a comfy top. But I still dressed up every day for dinner, and I still had my character outfits, and I still had my port day outfits. Pack a lot and don't do laundry. Do that when you get home. Pack a lot. It's fine. Overpack. There's so much storage. Just overpack. And then invest in a supportive maternity swimsuit. So I have, and I'm going to be posting a reel on my Instagram soon of like a review of a couple of different ones. But the black one that I wore to Castaway is by Kindred Bravely. And this is like the bathing suit to get. It's got like side support and back support and like all kinds of stuff. Ooh. And you'll just feel good in it. It's very tempting to get cheap ones on Amazon because you're like, I'm not going to be pregnant forever. I'm not going to need this forever. But if you're looking to get one bathing suit to get you through a whole cruise, definitely get one that has built-in support. Mm-hmm. If you're okay with like, I'm only going to wear it once and then I'm going to, dispose of it, go ahead and get the cheap ones on Amazon. But just know that they're not going to give you the support you need for all day wear. If you're going to be in the pool for 30 minutes, then all right, maybe fine. And forget it in the ocean because they don't hold up well. But a supportive swimsuit, and then hydrate. This was a really big one. Most pregnant women have some sort of hydration plan at home to make sure that you're hitting your like hydration needs, whether it's like using a timer or carrying a water bottle with you all day. But start to, before you leave, before you travel, like really pay attention to your body and maybe like stretch your plan out a little bit so you can start to experience what your body feels like when it's starting to get dehydrated, so you can know. Because when you're on a cruise ship, especially if you're sailing in the warmer months of the year, the dehydration is going to hit so much faster and so much harder. So if you're doing 12 cups of water at home, you might need like 16 to 18 on a ship. So having I never carry a refillable water bottle with me on cruises. First of all, I used to be a Diet Coke drinker and now I'm water only, but having a refillable water bottle, and I actually had two because I had one that was mine and one that was my husband's, and I would just fill his with ice, just ice all the time. And then it would gradually melt and I would always have some, but then I had mine with me all the time and I was always refilling it. So I always had water. And I would just go into Marceline and just get some fresh fruit and water, like as soon as I could every day to start that hydration process. Make sure that you stay even more hydrated than you think you need at home, because especially in the warmer months, the Caribbean sun is real. And the dehydration will catch up with you very, very quickly.
So true.
And then if you are doing announcement photos, which I had a picture earlier, but if you are doing announcement photos, do them on day one. I cannot stress this enough. So we actually took announcement photos on one of our earlier cruises. in the middle, and we did it on a port day with like a million cruises behind us, and like it was just honestly really stressful. And both of us were sunburnt a little bit, so we're trying to like hide parts and stuff, and then we were like busy because it was the middle of the cruise. We were trying to go do stuff. And we also didn't know we were having twins at that point. So once we got home and we found out it was twins just the next day. So
Oh, gee, yeah.
So we didn't end up using any of those pictures because we had like one pair of shoes, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
So we didn't use them anyway. But it was really stressful. Whereas when I did them on day one on the Treasure, first we boarded somewhat early because we used resort ground transportation. I highly recommend. But two, we just had so much more time to not be doing anything. Boarding day is a great time. I think Rebecca posted something about like explore and then edit and then eat or something like that.
Yeah.
So during that explore time, everybody's just walking around the ship. There were so many people that were like, "Oh, I'll take it for you!" Like, great. And then I also, my friend boarded later, and she took great pictures of us. But we had a random cast member just take pictures of us posing, and Rapunzel and Flynn are behind us walking. It was so perfect.
Yes. I was going to say, I don't know how that coordination happened, but it's such a great picture, like perfect Christmas card. Love
it. Was
it.
a perfect Christmas card. And then now, like, especially if you're making an announcement, and so it's now going to be public, you don't have to worry about keeping the rest of your cruise photos like a secret.
Yes. Yes.
You just enjoy. So do it on day one. And then consider optional luxuries and what value they provide. And this is something that, again, I felt like with Disney Cruise Line specifically, the optional luxuries made it work really well for me. Whereas on other cruise lines, I didn't need to buy anything extra. So that kind of gave other cruise lines a little bit of an advantage. But I will say that other cruise lines did not have that rainforest room, and I really loved it. It saved me many times having that heated lounger. And then I would like roll up a heated towel as well and stick it under my ankles so my legs were really elevated. And I would go in there with my clothes on, like right after dinner. My feet have just been down at the restaurant. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go and prop my feet up for 30 minutes. And then I also had a pedicure on board, which is not something that I do regularly. I probably would say I do that like 10% of cruises. I don't normally visit the spa on board. It's kind of a luxury that I don't need. And I actually did it, and most people like to get pedicures early in their cruise so their feet are all cute in their cruise. I did it on the last day of that cruise. I was about to get on another cruise afterward, and it just felt so good. My feet had worked so hard all week, and now I got to soak them and care for them. They will modify the pedicure a bit. That standard fire and ice pedicure is not pregnancy safe. So it's just the like basic pedicure with the polish change and a foot massage and a salt scrub, no hot stones. But it was wonderful. And then Palo, right? This is something that we often book on cruising, but because of my food sensitivities, I was like, I just got plain pasta. Like, did we really need to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if we really needed that, but I did also get the chocolate souffle, and I did really enjoy that. So I'm not saying don't do it, but just weigh that the value.
Look at your pregnancy, and if you're having food aversion, specifically to Italian food that's not a chocolate souffle, that makes perfect sense. Oh my gosh.
And then this photo package, I was like debating it, like, do it. Oh my gosh, I am so glad that we did not do the photos, because what I don't really think about when you're booking your photo package is the lines for photos. And it's not a big deal when you're not pregnant. Yeah. You're like, sure, I can wait 15 minutes to meet Mickey Mouse and get a cute photo. But when you are, 15 minutes of standing in line is like, it feels like an hour. It's not good. And so the amount of like not waiting in lines was amazing. And we have great photos from this trip. We took ourselves or had friends take for us. And I met 4 or 5 characters just candidly walking around. So like it worked out just fine. Now I will say we were on one of the most crowded sailings I've ever been on. Treasure was totally sold out. And it was, it was May 31st to June 7th. So it was like that kind of first summer vacation week. So many kids had just got out of school. So it was a very like 6 to 10-year-old heavy cruise. So the character photos, they were very popular. Definitely longer lines than I'd seen on other ships, but it still made me very glad that we skipped that photo package.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Such great points and things that I would have never thought of. And speaking of lines, Erin's asking, what about the muster drill? Did you have to stand for that?
You do not. So the muster drill, while it is not virtual like other cruise lines, Come on, Disney. You can do it. It is in person, but it is generally at one of the specialty or not specialty, the main dining restaurants, rotational dining restaurants on board. So we have, or you're at the theater. So like almost everywhere you go, you've got a place to sit. So I just sat down and we waited, and it wasn't even that long. It was about 35 minutes of sitting in the 1923.
I was going to say on my last, I want to say like 2 or 3 cruises, I don't think we've been out on deck for it. And I feel like on the Treasure and the Wish, they take advantage of a lot of those spaces inside more so. But even outside on deck, if you are there are benches available and the crew will help you. They want you to be comfortable and just plug in, be on time for the muster drill so that your pregnant friends are not having to stand there unnecessarily.
Yes.
And then someone's asking, can I bring a walking cane?
Yes, you can bring a cane with you on board. It does need to make sure that it is approvable. So there are some specifications. It can't be a cane that can be used as a weapon, like the modifiable ones with pointy tips, and it can't be a cane that is modular and extends past, I think it's 6 feet, which makes it more of a baton. But most standard walking canes are just fine.
Awesome. Love it. And what about some tips for going on excursions, going ashore?
Shore days. Okay. So this was a really good one because a lot of people just assumed I stayed on the ship. I was like, why would you? No, wait. No, I go. I do things. Okay. I do things.
Love it.
There's definitely just like, activities that have a disclaimer that say not suitable for, guests with heart conditions or back conditions or pregnant, guests. And you'll see that right in the description of the Port Adventures through Disney. And they're generally going to be things like horseback riding, the falls jumping, the zip lining, just more like active type things. But then there's also plenty of activities that don't have that disclaimer. You're allowed to do them, but is it a good idea? Maybe not. Okay. So these were things like Atlantis Aquaventure. You're allowed to go. Is it a good idea? I don't think so. But I'm not your doctor. You want to go do water slides? You do you. Go ahead. But I'm not your doctor. But look into things that are going to suit your body and your body's needs. So for me, I needed access to restrooms. Not all the time. Like, I just need to know that like there will be one. I'm not going 6 hours. Access to air conditioning, even if it's just in a vehicle. And then how long of a drive is it from port? And these are all things that your agent can research for you. If you're booking through Disney Cruise Line, that might not be apparent in the description. The description will be all about the fun things you're going to do. And these kind of more bare bones are not going to be in the description, but you can find out what provider the tour is through and kind of get this information. However, we did book some things through Disney Cruise Line, but most of our activities were private. And I highly recommend booking private. Even if you're just a party of 2, it still was like on the Norwegian trip, it was just me and one of my agent friends each day on our own private tour. So much better. But then when I was sailing on Disney, I had my friend and her family of 5. So it was we were a group of 7. And we had the best time. In Cozumel, we did a private buggy drive. And we had 2 buggies between our party and a driver. We toured Cozumel totally on our own schedule. Air conditioning went in the buggy. Saw so many different things, and then ended with snorkeling. It was lots of fun. I didn't snorkel, but I did get in the water with a life jacket and just enjoy. And then at Grand Cayman, we had our own boat, and that was so much fun. And you can see the top picture is me sitting on the boat, our driver's behind us. And then the drivers took a towel and they stuck it in the freezer at the start of the sailing. So on our drive back, I had this cold towel to wrap around my feet. Oh my gosh. And we saw so much of Grand Cayman. We saw Starfish Point, we saw Stingray City. And then we just toured through the North Sound. Oh, we had the best time. And it was just the 7 of us. When we got to Starfish Point, there was no one there. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, but that's awesome. I feel like, right, we've talked about this before, but so often people are like, oh, I can't do any excursions not through Disney because there's this fear of getting left behind because you see the horror stories of somebody running off the ship. This is why you have an amazing travel agent like Crissi who helps you plan and gives you plenty of time to get back to the ship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much value in having, especially when you're expecting, having an excursion that you can control, that you can say, hey, I am done for the day. I think I'm ready to head back. Hey, I need to get back on board the bus. I need to stop somewhere. Like, there's ways that you can customize it further for you.
Absolutely.
So please don't be scared of private excursions. They're awesome.
They really are. And then we also did the rafting on the Martha Brae, and we did that through Disney Cruise Line. And that was almost like a private excursion. We had a bus to get to the river, and that was not private. But then the rafts, the bamboo rafts, are all just for 2 people. Or if you have a child under 12, it could be 2 adults and 1 child under 12. So it was kind of like having our own raft down the ocean. And now during that hour, it took about an hour to go down the river. I don't know why I just called it an ocean. During that hour to go down the river, there was no bathroom and there was no air conditioning, but it was very shaded. And we had a wonderful raft rower, gondola guide, raft pole person. Oh my gosh, his name was Danny. He was fantastic. And we had such a peaceful, relaxing time, just the 2 of us, and that was really pleasant. So I do highly recommend rafting on the Martha Bray. The value of booking through Disney Cruise Line is like $3 more expensive than booking it yourself, and now you don't have to find a cab, so it's going to be great. Yes. So I highly recommend that one, but really looking for activities that are private, because that way you're not like, even if you book it through the cruise line, but it's like small group private, so that you're not on a million people's schedule. The last thing you want to do is be like on some beach break and having like a bus waiting for you because you're slower than other families, and it's just, you don't need that pressure.
Yes, so true. And then someone's asking, did you bring that life jacket or did they provide?
No, that was provided by and it's mandatory for the raft. They let us take it off for one picture, but that's on my husband's phone. I don't have that picture, so sorry. Yeah.
That is okay. And then we have the question here. We'll be 7 months pregnant on a very maritime cruise. Please advise. We need to do something special. That's going to be after the.
So 7, you got to just, it depends on how 7 times 4. I was doing that math in my head. So most likely you're 28-ish weeks, and that you will be too pregnant to sail. So you will need to call Disney immediately and reschedule to just 4 or 5 weeks earlier, and you can go, or you'll need to wait until you can sail after delivery.
Yes, definitely. Glad that you were here so we can get that question answered. And if you can't sail, there are other vacations that you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. So in addition to 5 cruises, I also did 1 all-inclusive. I was at Sandals Negril in Jamaica. I did 1 Adventures by Disney. I did their Arizona and Utah departure. I did 1 theme park trip. And now, granted, this was like the day before we got on the Treasure, so it's kind of all part of one big trip. But goodness, I learned something about that. Out of all 3, truly, I do think that the best babymoon was cruising. And now, I'm biased. We all know I love cruising. Okay. Yeah. When I was at Jamaica, that was actually with an earlier pregnancy that ultimately miscarried, but there were people way further along in their pregnancy than I was that were there for their baby moons, and they were taking their beautiful, maternity pictures by the ocean and having a great time. But again, for me, air conditioning is required. At many all-inclusives, your option for air conditioning during the daytime is your room, or the spa, which, you have to pay to be having a service in the spa. At dinner time, they've got like indoor restaurants and things, but most of the time during the day, you're outside, and lunch is outside, and that is just not for me. When I'm pregnant, I was really sick in Jamaica when I was pregnant. It was not good for me. Adventures by Disney was a ton of fun. I'm really glad that I did it early on in my pregnancy. I was maybe not as early as I would have liked. I was 10 weeks, but I was still able to climb the Grand Canyon and do walking trails. And do so many things and keep up with the group. It wasn't all adults only, like group that I was with, which not all departures are that way, but we had so much fun. I would absolutely do it as long as you're early on in your pregnancy. And there were only 2 activities that honestly, they weren't going to tell me I couldn't do, but I chose to refrain from. And that was an off-roading Jeep tour. And then there was an optional like ATV tour that I didn't do. I enjoyed pool time instead.
Yes, love that.
So then for the parks, oh man, we did 1 day at Animal Kingdom, which of all the Disney parks is generally known to be like the least shaded, the most walking, and it also has like the whole, like the grounds of it are uneven. They're like cobbly, so it's not nice on your feet. But I was there for Travel Agent Appreciation event. And we also wanted to see the new baby tiger, even though he's more of a juvenile size now, but I hadn't seen him as a baby. And we planned on getting lunch there, but we actually didn't even make it to lunch there because the heat and the walking, and then there are a couple rides at Animal Kingdom that I could do, but I wouldn't be interested in. So, but most of the rides at Animal Kingdom, I could not do. You can't do Everest. You can't do the safari because it's too off-roady. can't do dinosaur, can't do this. There's just so much. Oh, can't do Flight of Passage, right? The only one I could really do was Navi River Journey, and we weren't waiting in line for a ride we've already done before. So, but we ended up going back to a resort and having a lovely lunch and a lovely pool time, and that was fantastic. But I learned the hard way that if you're thinking about doing the theme parks while pregnant, I would consider a Disney cruise instead. That's just me. Plenty of people do the theme parks pregnant and they have a great time. But for me, especially when I see like families that have like a 5 and a 7-year-old and they're like, oh my gosh, I want, and mom's also pregnant. It's like, you want to take them to Disney at this like magical age, but take them on a ship instead. It's going to be so much better for you. They're still going to meet all the princesses. They're going to have fireworks at sea and it's going to be epic. And don't put yourself through the torture of walking a bajillion steps a day and being in the heat all day. I just personally don't think that it's worth the cost, but also like the risk to your personal health. It's a lot. It's really strenuous, especially doing Florida in the summertime. Maybe if you went in the winter, it would be different. But in the summertime, I would look at a cruise instead at all costs.
Yes, I was going to say, I feel like I don't know anybody who goes to the parks and gets less than like 15 to 20,000 steps a day. And that can be a lot. And if that's your jam, more power to you. Like, do what makes you happy and what you're comfortable with. But when it comes to vacation and getting time to, easily disconnect, if you're at the park, getting back to your room, depending on what resort you're staying at, on property, off property, a lot more details to kind of work out there. So love the idea of being able to pop back into your stateroom very easily. And gosh, you did so many cool things. Well,
I know. I did, and I have one trip. I'll be at Universal for my birthday, and the only thing we're doing is going to meet Toothless on my birthday. That's it. And then we're going to go back to my hotel and have a pool day. Because I've learned the hard way that theme parks while pregnant are not for me, and Epic Universe is still a theme park. Really quick, I do see that MJC has a question because she weren't at the beginning, so I want to follow up before you have to go. That the maximum number of weeks you can sail with Disney Cruise Line is 23. So 24 weeks and more is the question. It'll be asked in your health questionnaire 24 hours prior to sailing. That you'll have to answer that there's nobody in your party more than 23 weeks pregnant.
Yes. So definitely, if you are expecting, want to get that switched up as quickly as possible so that you can get that moved to another sailing farther out. But okay, so you can't cruise after 23 weeks, but when can you cruise again? And when are you going to cruise
all
again?
I think about right now, okay, like coming home from my last cruise and I'm realizing that it's my last cruise was devastating. And it's not my last cruise ever, but I'm normally that girl that has like 4 or 5 cruises booked, for the next several years in advance. And right now I have a lot of cruises booked in my mind, but nothing actually booked because I want to make sure everybody is born healthy and all of that. It's important, right? So all I think about is when I can get back on a ship. But here are the rules. Nearly every line has a minimum age requirement of 6 months. And that's for every sailing. It doesn't matter length of call, length, port of departure, whatever. Almost every single cruise line. Almost, that's the key word. On longer sailings, it may even extend to 1 year, even 2 years. And the reason for these is that it's not actually about the length of the sailing. It's about the length between port stops. So a lot of times if you're on a really long sailing, you may have like 3 or 4 days straight at sea. And in that case, it's like, we can't really helicopter you anywhere. We're in the middle of nowhere. So they won't take a 6-month-old. You may have a 1 year requirement. Disney has a 1 year requirement on several of their sailings that have very long stretches at sea. Other cruise lines have a 2-year requirement on some of those sailings as well. But there is one line in the US that does not have a minimum age requirement. You could take them on the day they're born if you want to. For sailings less than 10 nights. If it's 10 nights or longer, then it's 2 years. Well, currently it's 1 year, but in the next month, it's going to be changed to 2 years. But anyway, so this is MSC Cruises, not Disney Cruise Line, but it is a great option for families. If you want like a weekend away, what we're planning to do is like the last weekend of my husband's paternity leave, we're going to be on a ship. I'm very excited. He'll kind of end with a little cruise with our little 2-month-old twins. Or if you just want a family cruise, right? Like you've got kiddos and, they want them to be back on a ship and you've got one that's not quite 6 months. Maybe you're at 4.5, 5 months. MSC is a great option. They have great spaces on board. There's a space on board for parents to stay and play with their infants, which is so it's separate from where you can stay and play with your like toddlers and up. It's just an infant parent play space. And that's open to everybody. And then as soon as they're 6 months, then they have a drop-off infant care that is not an additional charge like other cruise lines. So there's that.
Yeah.
But so email me, let's chat to see if it's a good fit. It's not Disney Cruise Line, but it does have some great features and really cool new ships, great private island. It's very similar to Castaway. And then provided everybody is healthy, expect to see the twins and I on board for New Year's and also probably a short sailing before Nathan goes back to work.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's nice to have some flexibility, especially when, you're at home and you're in the chaos of the newborn phase. It's a nice idea to plan for something like this.
Yeah.
If you don't know, right, you don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know how the baby, right. There's lots of factors with newborns. Is that something that you could book more last minute?
Absolutely. So you can book last minute. And then you also just want to talk with your agent about last minute deals, but also deposit policies, right? So some cruises, Disney is very flexible with its refundable deposit up until 90 days for short sailing and 120 days for longer. Other cruise lines are non-refundable deposit, but the deposit is very minimal. Now, MSC, the deposit is $98. So am I willing to risk $98? I mean, I am. Not everybody will be, but I am. Most likely I'm going to go. So as soon as they're born, if we're not in the NICU, I'm booking this cruise. But you can also wait and book pretty last minute. I've booked clients to sail the day after tomorrow. So yes, you can book last minute. Sometimes you won't see a cruise posted online anymore at 3 days. They usually send a ship manifest out, and sometimes they'll close the sailing at 1 week. But you can call, and usually you can get yourself added to that ship if you needed to.
I was going to say, Chrissy's got your back on that one. And I have heard of great things of MSC, and that's coming from a Disney Cruise Line gal. So don't be scared to try other lines. I'm so ready for this. Bonus slide.
My bonus slide. So here's my top sailing while pregnant tip is people are judgy. I don't know why. Okay, I really don't know why. You're going to get weird looks. I will tell you that of all the cruise lines, Disney Cruise Line was the worst as far as the weird looks, the judgy comments, the people wanting to talk to me. I don't know if that's just my sailing I was on or just in general, but it was a lot of people that didn't want to mind their own business, but that's okay. But just ignore it all. Ignore all of it and do what feels good for you, okay? And if that means that you're putting pickles on your ice cream, do it because it's delicious. If that means that you're using the lounger upside down, because this was me every day, do it. And wearing compression socks with your formal dress, do it. Do what makes you feel comfortable. You might stand out a little bit, but most of the time, no one's even looking anyway. And if they are, that's their own cruise that they're not enjoying because you're doing something weird. Let them make that decision. You do what feels good for you.
Yes. This is your vacation.
Yeah.
Please enjoy it. You've been looking forward to it, and you deserve this time to make you happy before it's not really about you anymore. You've got to at least consider some other humans. But I am curious. We got a question from somebody. Where was it? Michaela's asking, we are in the process of trying to conceive. I don't know what to do about planning for a cruise. What do you think?
Yeah, so that was me for a really long time. And it's tough, right? And what I would really recommend is to stick with Disney Cruise Line because it does have some of the most flexible cancellation policies and that the deposit is refundable. And book the cruise that you want to take. And if it ends up being that it doesn't work, but you conceive earlier than expected, and now you'll be too pregnant to sail, make adjustments. If it ends up being that you find out that you're pregnant on board, celebrate. Book the cruise that you want to take. Work with a planner that can kind of guide you through, okay, this is the date that we have to make a decision on this cruise. So this is the date that we kind of need to know, how, let's 3 weeks before that, let's make sure that you either are pregnant so that you won't be too pregnant, or let's pause trying for a little bit. Or let's also just look at other cruise lines that have a non-refundable deposit, but that's really low that you're willing to risk it on. The other thing too is you can just wait it out and book last minute deals. Totally okay. But I think it's a better idea to have stuff to look forward to because trying to conceive, it can be stressful. It's not always easy. I really truly wish you the best. I hope that it's super easy for you, and I'm hoping and praying for you. But having something fun to look forward to, regardless of the results of your conception, it can take a lot of stress off.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. there's so many things to consider. And I mean, emotions, schedules, and deposits. And that's why having a trusted travel advisor like Crissi in your corner, someone who, yes, she is the queen of cruising, but she's also the queen now of cruising with twins.
Yeah.
And like, she can help you look ahead. What does your schedule look like? What does planning in life kind of look like, and what makes sense for you? Because the reality is that everybody is different, and there's a lot of question marks, and she can kind of help plan. And then if things do happen or if they don't happen, you can have a plan of action together. I'm telling you, her expertise when it comes to family travel, whether you're, just the adults doing it or the whole gang, she is in your corner. And again, like we said in the beginning, her planning services are free for you to utilize. So reach out to her, get on her calendar, and have a conversation about what is going to be best for your family. And Michaela is saying thank you. So, yes. And the link to Crissi's page on DCL community site, that is up on the screen, but I'm going to get that in the comments for you as well. And then, yeah, if there are any questions, please reach out to Crissi. But Crissi, thank you so much for hanging out with us and sharing your onboard pregnancy journey. And I mean, I know I am so excited for you, and I can't wait to hear all about cruising with infants, cruising with toddlers. Like, you are going to have us covered from the mom point of view. I'm excited. So excited. And thank you all so much for joining, and we will see all y'all on board real soon. Bye, guys.